expert at seeing this happen. It happens at least once a week at every coffee shop in town. People coming from England and they're not used to smoking really good cannabis. And they like go to a coffee shop and they didn't eat enough and they didn't drink enough and they didn't sleep enough and they smoke a lot and the next thing you know, they go down. But you know what? They always come up. And I'll tell you something. One time Baba Ram Dass was giving a speech, Richard Albert, Timothy Leary's old partner. He was giving a speech in Gainesville, Florida in 1975. And I was sitting in this huge auditorium where there was hardly any seats. And I ended up sitting on this banister, which was kind of above everybody, but it was kind of eye level with Ram Dass. And he was talking about death and rebirth. And it was really hot in there, and this girl I know, she was kind of rubbing my shoulders, standing in back of me, kind of giving me a massage. And the next thing I knew, I left my body. I fell over backwards onto the people that were sitting in back of me. And Ram Dass stopped doing his discourse and just started oming. He started doing this heavy om. And as I was laying there coming back into my body, all I could hear was this om. And then as soon as I stood up and he could see that I was okay, he went back to his discourse. But it's like Ramakrishna, who is this guru who lived in India, he was constantly leaving his body. But whenever he wasn't leaving his body, he had so many beautiful things to say that two of his disciples were always walking in back of him, just in case they had to catch him. Because he was always leaving his body just like that. So whenever I see somebody do that, it's not really a sign of physical illness or even anything physical. It's a spiritual happening. Even if the person doesn't realize it, it's a spiritual happening because it's kind of like a near-death experience. When you leave your body, whether it's on a mushroom tea or whether it's just from being overheated, it's a very spiritual experience because you get to glimpse that other side. And you know, I've been watching my cat, my 16-year-old cat, I've been watching her leave her body. When I go home today, I don't know if she'll still be alive because she's on her last few moments. She stopped eating 5 days ago, she's only drinking water, and she can almost not move anymore. But it's been an amazing experience watching her cross over to the other side each day a little bit more, so that she's hardly in this physical world at all. She's mostly in the other world at this point. But, I mean, life and death on this planet teaches us a lot. And this planet needs life these days. It's too full of death. We're in the times of the light right now, even though it looks so dark. The darkest time is just before the dawn.
That's right.
We're coming to a time where there's going to be the dawning of this bright, loving, full of light consciousness. And cannabis is one of those major ingredients that shows us how to share, that shows us how to be loving, that shows us how to be caretakers, so that we can be the people we've been waiting for, to be the caretakers of this planet. Any other questions?
You used to grow in buckets. What size buckets?
When I used to grow in buckets, well, a lot of times here I would grow small plants in 4-liter, which is like 1-gallon buckets, square ones, and I put them together right next to each other so I could fit as many into a room as I could. But that makes for a small root system, which never makes for a really fantastic bud. Me, I love bigger plants with bigger root systems because I find those buds are superior. 3 gallons is nice. Anything that's got some size. Because like, when you harvest your plants, it also depends how much you're vegging it. You know what I mean? Because when you harvest your plant, it's always good to look, how much soil did these roots use? Did they go all the way to the bottom? Did they go to the side, you know? And that tells you, basically, for the size of plants you're growing, how much root space you need. Soon. pH, for hydro, I like 5.8.
Thank you.
For soil, I
I
like
got some
6.
in my pocket, I just can't reach them. Thanks,
Now, it also depends whatever pH your soil is to start with. Most of the soil that I work with is around 7. So when I give food and water together, I pH it to 6. So that when it first, because whatever you pH water with, the water still eventually goes back up slowly through time. Through a 12-hour period, it goes back up to whatever it started. So when I give the soil plants food and water with a pH of 6, it will start going to 6.1, 6.2, 6.3 through hours and hours of time. In that time, when it goes from 6 to 7, the plant is able to pick up whatever nutrients it needs, whether it's zinc, whether it's iron, whether it's nitrogen, whether it's phosphorus, potassium, whatever it needs in major nutrients or micronutrients. It doesn't pick those nutrients up all at the same pH. At a certain pH, going from 6 to 7 will be the optimum one for each certain one. And at that point, the roots will grab that zinc, will grab that nitrogen, will grab that potassium. But at a different pH, those nutrients become unavailable. And if you don't watch your pH, you get fertilizer lockup, which happens so often, especially to beginning growers, because you end up giving your food the right, you end up giving your plants the right food, but the wrong pH. So the food is there in the soil, but the pH is so wrong that the roots cannot suck that nutrient out of the soil, and so the nutrients get locked up. A lot of times people, when they have that problem, they go, oh, my plant doesn't have enough fertilizer. So they give it a little bit more, which pretty much kills it at that point. So the best thing to do if you ever have plants with fertilizer lockup is to just give them water. And not too much water, but just give them water for a while and let that food, water at the right pH especially, because it needs that correct pH to access that food that's there. Yes, whatever food you use, you have to re-pH everything and make sure it's still 6. You got to add citric acid is what I use to bring the pH down. You can use phosphoric acid too, but it's not as organic. Citric acid is much nicer. Yeah, you always got to have a good pH meter. A good pH meter, calibrated at least once a month, is an essential tool for a good gardener. Because if you don't, even if you got a real good pH meter, but you don't recalibrate it about once a month, if you use it a lot, it can go off and you won't know it. And you'll think you got the right pH, and before you know it, your plants will be shouting at you, hey, it's something wrong. You know, so you always got to calibrate your pH meters, and you always got to use them.
What about foliar feeding? Do you foliar feed, and how
Yeah,
often?
foliar feeding is great. I like seaweed for that. I really like seaweed. I do that in the vegging and in the first 2 weeks of flowering.
Okay.
You know, before, you know, just, you know when the white hairs, just before the hairs are almost white, they're almost green. I do foliar feeding up to that point.
Like how many times a week? How?
Once a week.
Once a week. Okay.
Once a week, but a good job. Underneath, on top, you know.
Yeah.
Saturated. And not too strong so you're gonna burn it, you know, just right.
Okay. Excellent.